Give me a count or it is started?
Yes, sir.
Good evening to all the members who have joined this program on Accounting Standards AS20 Earning Per Share, organized by Pune branch of WRC of ICAI and hosted by Pune branch of WRC of ICAI. We welcome you all with a brief address of our own CCM Chandrasekhar Chitle sir in absentia, CA Samir Ladha, Chairman and Treasurer of Pune branch of ICAI in absentia, CA Kashinath Pathare sir, Vice Chairman and Secretary of Pune branch of ICAI, and respected members, our own speaker today, CA Harshvardhan Patil sir. Good evening to all, and I welcome you on this virtual meet. Now I will straight away introduce CA Harshvardhan Patil sir today. CA Harshvardhan Patil sir is a FCA and has completed his graduation from Pune Symbiosis Institute. He completed his FCA in 2001 with a third merit rank holder in CA Intermediate and has cleared his CA final with a merit list. He has cleared his UGC NET exam and was holding 17th All India rank. He started his teaching profession since last 20 years. He was also a state basketball player and has represented Pune University in various tournaments. He was awarded the Principal's Special Award of Symbiosis Institute for his best performance in studies as well as in sports. With this brief introduction, I request CA Harshvardhan Patil sir to take the charge.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
We are proud we have a session after 15 years. Patil, we all of us Patil sir students when we are PA2. All EPS teach by Patil sir. Today also we are eagerly wait for learning EPS. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, and I welcome you all to this very interesting standard, Accounting Standard 20. So before actually starting with the Accounting Standard 20, let us first see how a simple analysis can be used for the purpose of deciding whether to invest in shares of a particular company whose EPS we are knowing. So, you know, the stock markets today are a very hotbed, and the Sensex touching new levels, and every 10 days, every 15 days, we get a news in the newspaper that yes, the Sensex has broken all the records. So it is not very surprising if each and everyone feels that we should also invest, and we should also not miss the bus. So let's see how we can use the EPS to take very simple decisions about investing in shares of a particular company or not. So the information about EPS is available across many channels of a particular company, and we can refer to either annual reports, or we can refer to any investing site like Money Control, and we get to know the earnings per share. So definitely we are going to see how to use that to take a very simple decision of whether we should invest in a share or not. That is one thing. And then secondly, we being chartered accountants in our esteemed profession, we should know exactly what's behind this, what's the technicalities behind this, and exactly what is the logic behind various provisions which are given in Accounting Standard 20. So first of all, we are going to see how we can take a very informed decision by using the technique of earnings per share. Yeah, I'm sharing the screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes,
Is my
sir.
screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, great. So let's first understand the importance of the EPS in share analysis, and let us try to see how to take a very simple decision of whether we can invest in a share of a particular company or not with the help of the analysis on EPS. Once we finish that, we are going to see the technicalities and also the logics and concepts behind the various provisions of the earnings per share, that is Accounting Standard 20. So I've taken a very simple example. So company name is Wipro. EPS of Wipro, the consolidated EPS of Wipro is 21.26. So rupees 21.26 EPS. Now expected rate of return. Now friends, whenever we see this expected rate of return, it has a very important logic behind deciding the expected rate of return. So expected rate of return depends on the risk. So a very simple logic we follow, and that logic is that we follow in the finance: high risk, high return; low risk, low return; no risk, no return. Jitna risk, utna hi return. So I have taken here, let us say, an expected rate of return of 12%. Now, how is this? How is the EPS I have taken here? This EPS I have taken from the statements of Wipro, latest statements of Wipro, and that is the consolidated EPS. So consolidated EPS of Wipro and its group of companies. Now, how I have taken this expected rate of return? Now, this expected rate of return is a matter of judgment. So how I have taken 12% is, generally, if we see, a risk-free rate of return is the rate of return on government securities. Because we know, all of us know that government securities have nearly no risk, because there is very little chance of dishonoring the government, dishonoring their commitment. So that's why, let us say, a government securities like a PPF or something like that. So the rate of return is 7.5%, which can be taken as a risk-free rate of return. Thereafter, I have added a risk premium depending on the company. Now, Wipro is a very strong company and a very stable company. So when it is a very strong or very stable company, then the risk premium will not be too high. So that's why I have added a risk premium to 7.5%, and to that I have added 4.5%, which is the risk premium. Why I have taken that? Because Wipro is a company which is a stable company. The more the risk, if the company is a new company, then that will go to 14%, that will go to 15%. So we have to take the judgment based on the logic: high risk, high return; low risk, low return; jitna risk, utna hi return. So this I have absolutely assumed based on the, so this is completely assumed based on the risk profile of the company. So generally, if I want to invest in a stock market, I'm definitely taking some amount of risk because there are continuous fluctuations. So I expect that I will get little bit above, in fact, at least a premium of 4 to 5% above my risk-free rate of return. So that's why I have taken 12%. With this, I find the theoretical price per share, or I can find the expected price of a share. Who expects this price? I am expecting. So what price I am expecting of that share means how much I am ready to pay for that share from my pocket. See, everybody has an expectation. When we go out, in the market to buy anything, we have a certain expectation in our mind that how much price we are willing to pay. As we are chartered accountants, as we are students of finance, definitely each and everything we weigh based on risk return analysis. So based on that, my expectation is that for a share having a risk profile of Wipro, my expected rate of return being 12%, my expected price is equal to EPS upon expected rate of return. That is, my EPS is rupees 21.26 upon 12%. That is, my expected price is 177. So same, the logic of the formula everybody might be knowing, but still I've just for conceptual presentation, I have just put, if my value of investment is 100, I am expecting a return of 12. So if I want to invest in a similar company like Wipro, I would require 12 rupees when I invest 100. But actually, I am getting a return of 21.26. So how much is the value of my investment? So cross multiplying, I get 177 rupees. So I am willing to pay how much? 177. Now, how much is the actual market price? Now, actually, I go to the again to some either through the website like Money Control to get the latest price, or I can directly go to Wipro website, and I come to know that my actual price of Wipro is in the, I think it is 599 point something, 599.6 yesterday's closing. So let us say actual market price is 600. Now I am willing to pay 177 based on my return. Actual market price is 600. So always you compare this expected price with the actual market price. So what we are always going to compare, the expected price with the actual market price. Now I am willing to pay 177. Friends, if I am willing to pay 177 and the thing is available in the market for 600, will you buy it? Actually, the answer should be no, because the stock is heavily overvalued in the market. So this is what we actually do to find whether the stock is overvalued or whether the stock is undervalued. Now, of course, see, whether you buy or sell, this is just one way of analyzing. Friends, there are at least 50 other methods by which we can analyze and whether we can come to a decision whether to buy the share or not. I am just giving a glimpse that how we can use the EPS for a simple analysis. So based on the earnings per share and my expected rate of return, I come to know that the share actually priced in the market is very high. And as the share is overvalued, based on this approach, I'm saying based on this approach, this is not a final recommendation, because as I said, there are n number of methods by which one can come to a decision whether to buy a share or no. But based on this approach, as the share is heavily overvalued, I am going to prevent myself to invest in this share. So this is a very simple one approach where we can use the EPS calculations, and yes, thereafter we can also use the PE analysis. So PE ratio is the again price earnings ratio. So let's see how to use the so PE analysis, which is nothing but the market price upon EPS, which where the actual market price is 600 and EPS is 21.26. So 28.2 times is the market price as compared to EPS. So friends, which again tells us that this share is overvalued. And yes, if you see, there is a general recommendation, or there is a general overview that yes, the market has been overvalued of recently because the fundamentals of the economy are not so strong, and as the fundamentals of the economy are not so strong, we don't know exactly what will happen in the future. So the future is very uncertain. You know, new variants are coming, Delta plus, and we don't know really what is the way going forward in the next 1 or 2 years. So one ray of hope is vaccination. Because of vaccination, it may quite happen that, you know, by December or by next 7, 8, 9 months, the entire, not entire, but at least major population, 70-75% of population of the entire world gets vaccinated, and we are in a relief that chalo now vaccination ho gaya hai, and suddenly there is again a new variant, just a possibility, a new variant coming. So already there is gamma, delta, delta plus, and all together new variant comes which is completely resistant to the vaccination, and we come to again the stage 0. Just a possibility. So if a new variant comes after entire vaccination is over, then what would be the fundamentals of the market? So really, if you see right now, personally, if you ask absolutely personal opinion, so is that the market is really overvalued. Always we can say that the market is in a good position when fundamentally it is strong. So we should always see the fundamentals. There is one saying that if you put a ventilator to a heart patient, so if a heart patient is put on a ventilator, it's not possible for him to run a marathon. So he cannot run a marathon because he is a heart patient and he is on a ventilator. So friends, same thing here. And economy is actually on ventilator right now because of the future uncertainties, and still the market is touching new highs. So that makes us to be a cautious note, that be very careful and don't take unnecessary high amount of risk, because we should not indulge into speculation, but we should indulge in proper informative decision making. So that is my personal opinion. Anyway, so friends, you can see how this EPS can be used for the purpose of simple decision making. So now let us go into the technicalities and let us see the concepts of how different things are stated in the accounting standard and what are the different logics for the accounting standard 20. So friends, very important thing here is that in consolidated financial statements, the information required by this statement should be presented on basis of consolidated information, of course. So generally we want to invest in that particular company, seeing the entire group as such. So we do want the information about the consolidated financial statements and the consolidated financial information. So whenever preparing the consolidated financial statements, accounting standard 20 states that the EPS should also be dependent on the figures which are consolidated. Yes, thereafter definitions, basic definition, equity share other than preference share, share carrying preferential rights as to dividends and repayment, financial instrument, any contract that gives right to both the financial asset of one enterprise and a financial liability or equity share of another enterprise. So a financial instrument is an instrument where an investor can invest with a company, and then that will be the liability of the company and the asset of the investor. Whenever it is the liability of the company, it can even be a liability in form of a equity share capital. So financial instrument includes the equity share capital of that enterprise. So basically, asset of one investor and the liability of another will be the financial instrument. Very important, a potential equity share is a financial instrument or other contract that entitles or may entitle its holder to equity shares. The shares which are not now listed but going to be shortly listed. So the best example will be convertible debentures or convertible preference shares. So convertible debentures are those debentures which will be converted into equity shares in the future, and as they are going to get converted into equity share in the future, maybe after 1 year, after 2 years, after 3 years, it's important for us to let the readers know, let the readers of the financial statement know that whenever this gets converted into equity share, what will be the effect. Now friends, very important point is that this accounting standard, as many accounting standards, is based on the concept of conservatism or prudence. So never leave the fundamentals. I always repeat that never leave the fundamentals. So similarly, our fundamental principle that is the principle of conservatism or prudence. Just a passing reference. So everybody is aware. The principle of conservatism or prudence states that whenever we account for any expense or whenever we account for any losses, we should take into account all possible losses, even if there is a slight possibility that there is a chance of that loss to be incurred. So all the expenses or losses should be recorded, even if there is a slight possibility that the losses may take place. On the other hand, while recording of income, record only those incomes which are 100% sure to be realized. So this is the concept of conservatism or prudence, which we are going to follow in the entire accounting standard. So that's what, based on the principle of conservatism, after your convertible debentures or convertible preference shares actually get converted into equity shares, what is going to be the exact amount of effect on the earnings per share. So this standard requires presentation of two types of EPS. First EPS is the basic EPS, which is based on the present, and the second EPS is the diluted EPS. So what is a diluted EPS? The diluted EPS is after considering the effect of all potential equity shares. So potential equity shares are those convertible debentures, convertible bonds, convertible preference shares, which are going to get converted in equity shares very shortly. Yes, thereafter, share warrants or share options are financial instruments that give the holder the right to acquire equity shares. So generally they are stock options, whereby the holder of these options are not right now having the equity share, but they have a right to acquire the shares in the future. So they have the option of acquiring the shares in near future. That is called as share options or share warrants. And last, the fair value. Yes, everybody, our entire analysis revolves on the fair value. Is the amount for which an asset could be exchanged or a liability settled between knowledgeable, willing parties in one arm's length transaction. This terminology suggests that there was a fair discussion between the parties. Yes, so fair value is the value which is decided for exchange between two parties who are knowledgeable and capable of making a practical valuation. Yes, any discussion to be made on definition? You can please ask me before we proceed. Let us keep it a little bit two-sided. You know, otherwise I only continuously speaking. Only the screen and you hearing, maybe it may become a little bit monotonous. So let us be two-sided. Yeah, anything you want to put in, you want to chip in, please. Okay, no inputs. So let's go ahead.
Yes, Harshvardhan sir, any?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just asking if any inputs or anything you want, anybody wants to chip in, anybody wants to ask, if at all it is there. Otherwise, I will go ahead.
No.
Okay, I will go ahead then.
Nobody has raised any questions.
Okay, ठीक है. Absolutely no issues. Let's go ahead then. Okay, so presentation. An enterprise should present both basic and diluted EPS on the face of the financial statements. So basically, this standard states that whenever you are presenting the EPS, it should be presented both basic as well as diluted. Why diluted? Because diluted gives us an idea that whenever there is a conversion of potential equity shares then how much can be the reduction in the EPS, how much can be the dilution in the EPS. So presentation, an enterprise should present basic and diluted EPS on the face of statement of profit and loss for each class of equity shares that has different right to share in net profits for the period. Now, of course, if it is a company, then companies as per the Schedule 3 only, we also require the presentation of the EPS. So that will not be a problem. But for other type of entities, yes, we will have to present the EPS as per, of course, accounting standard 20. And as for non-corporate entities, there is no specific format. Yes, then we have to take care that these entities do present the EPS, both diluted as well as basic, as per the provisions of accounting standard 20. So as I said, basic and diluted EPS on the face of statement of profit and loss for each class of equity share that has different right to share in net profit for the period. You know, there are different types of equity shares also. There are equity shares with differential rights. So basically, it's very important that, yes, please raise question in the chat box. I will be viewing it in between. Yeah, so it's very important that both basic and diluted gets presented with equal prominence. So immediately after basic EPS, you should present a diluted EPS. The disclosure may also be often negative, that is loss per share. So it's also important to disclose the loss per share if it is resulting in a loss. Basic EPS, initially things are simple, then slowly the logics will start, the concepts will start. Basic earnings, the basic EPS be calculated by dividing the net profit or loss for the period attributable to equity shareholders by weighted average number of shares outstanding during the period. So friends, we have the profit or loss as stated by our profit and loss account, as stated by our statement of profit and loss, divided by weighted average cost of shares. Sorry, weighted average number of equity shares. So let's see what is the weighted average equity share. So weighted average equity shares will have prominence, especially when there is a fresh issue during the period. So whenever there is a fresh issue during the period, then we will have to take care that we have to find the weighted average number of equity shares outstanding during the period based on the time when the shares are issued, when the new shares are issued. So there are various illustrations which is referred to as appendix. So we will be seeing these examples through the appendix. So the appendix states the exact way in which the calculations are to be made. The calculations are shown in the appendix, but as we go from appendix 3 onwards especially, then there will be a lot of things where we will have to see the concepts and where we'll have to see the logic. So that we will come to very shortly. Yeah, earnings per share. Basic. For the purpose of calculating the basic EPS, the net profit or loss for the period attributable to equity shareholders should be net profit or loss for the period after deducting preference dividend and any attributable tax thereon for the period, that is cumulative as well as non-cumulative preference shares. So we know cumulative preference shares are those shares where if any 1 year due to inadequacy of profits, if there is no dividend declared or dividend paid to the preference shareholders because of inadequacy of profits, then we have to pay it in the subsequent years. That is called cumulative preference shares. Non-cumulative, we know where the rights don't get carried forward. So however, the amount of any preference dividend for cumulative preference shares paid or declared during the current period in respect of previous period is not considered. Yes, why it is not considered? However, I'm repeating, the amount of any preference dividend for cumulative preference shares paid or declared during the current period in respect of the previous period is not considered. Example, I have a certain problem in profits and I have inadequate profits for the financial year ending 31st March 2020. So 31st March 2020, my profits are inadequate preference dividend. Or let us say I could pay only 60% of preference dividend. So as I have paid only 60% of preference dividend, 40% I have not paid because I don't have that much profits. Now this 40% I will pay in the year when there will be profits. So in the year when there will be profits, I will pay 40% plus that particular years. So let us say in the year 2021, also there is absolutely no profits. Let us say in the year 2021, unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, I don't have the profits sufficient to pay a single amount of preference dividend. Now let us go to 2022. So March 2022, fortunately, I have full profits to pay 40% dividend of March 20 financial year ending, 100% dividend of March 21 plus 100% dividend of March 22. Now, my dear friends, whenever you calculate the basic EPS for the year 2022, I will consider only the EPS. While calculating the EPS, I will consider the dividend only of the year financial year 21-22. So can you tell me what is the logic behind it? Yes. So even if in the year ended 31st March 2022, I am paying all previous 2 years dividend plus this year. But friends, while calculating the EPS, I will consider the preference dividend only of the year 2022. Why? So I'm repeating. However, the amount of any preference dividend for cumulative preference shares paid or declared during current period 31st March 2022, but in respect of previous period 40% of 20 financial year ending and 100% of 21 financial year ending is not considered. Yes, can anybody answer in the chat? Matching concept. Okay. First time, what is the effect of partly paid shares? 1 minute. It's there. Very shortly, we are coming to the partly paid shares. So that we'll see very shortly. Yes. Matching concept. Okay. ठीक है. More better. Simple words. More simple words. Anybody can chip in. No problem. So that you know the conversation doesn't become just one-sided. Otherwise, धीरे-धीरे क्या होता है? थोड़ा you get lethargic. Yes, anybody can try. Absolutely no issues. What is there? We are just a close group of people. Yeah, anybody can try. Okay, matching concept. Okay. Income is for 21-22, so liability should also be for 21-22. Okay. Okay. ठीक है. More better reason, more clarity, more clear reasoning. There is a specific reason for this. Please tell me. If you might be knowing also, maybe not recollecting, or just be absolutely free to tell. Okay, shall I tell? Okay. See, the logic is that just read the earlier sentence. For the purpose of calculating the basic EPS, the net profit or loss for the period attributable to equity shareholders should be the net profit or loss for the period after deducting the preference dividend and any attributable tax thereto. Of course, as per the guidance note for presentation of the dividend tax, we immediately present the tax after the dividend. So, and any attributable tax thereto for the period, that is cumulative / non-cumulative. However, in case of amount of any preference dividend, now friends, whenever we have calculated the EPS, how we found out the EPS? How we have found out the EPS? The EPS is found out An enterprise should present, okay, basic. An enterprise should present basic with equal the disclosure. The basic EPS be calculated by dividing the net profit or loss for the period attributable to the equity shareholders. Now, net profit or loss for the period attributable to equity shareholders means, haven't we deducted the preference dividend on accrual basis in the respective years? So when we find out the profit or loss available or attributable to equity shareholders, then whether dividend is declared or not, we have already charged it to profit and loss of that respective year, irrespective of whether we have paid or not. So based on the concept of accrual, we have already charged the cumulative preference dividend in the respective years on accrual basis. So the moment we have deducted in the respective years on accrual basis, again we cannot take it on payment basis. So again we cannot take a deduction on payment basis, otherwise there will be a double deduction. So yes, matching concept also is absolutely right, but the more better concept here I will say is accrual, whereby we have already presented the, by calculating the profits attributable to the shareholders, we have already calculated the profits to equity shareholders by deducting the preference dividend on accrual basis. So as we have already calculated on accrual, again, yes, we don't calculate, again, we don't deduct when it is paid. Otherwise, there will be a double deduction. So that's why this particular provision has been stated. However, so a bit important, amount of any preference dividend paid or declared during current period in respect of previous is not considered because it had already been deducted in the respective year on accrual basis. Yes. Okay, clear everybody? In case an enterprise has more than one class of equity shares, net profit or loss for the period is apportioned over different classes in accordance with their dividend rights. So in case of enterprise has more than one class of equity shares, the net profit or loss for the period is apportioned over different classes of shares in accordance with their dividend rights. So based on the right on which they are going to get dividend. So let's see how to find the weighted average number of shares. So for the purpose of calculating the basic EPS, the number of equity shares should be weighted average number of shares. Refer appendix 1. So friends, I have taken the appendix 1. Yes. So please go through the appendix. 2 minutes I'll give you. Just check the chat. Yes. A net profit oblique number of shares. Yes. If provision not made considering sufficient profit. Yes. Then it should be. But generally, based on accrual system, we do make the provision. And for cumulative preferences, especially, the terms are that if in year of insufficient profits, if okay, please write the question in detail so that I will answer the questions later on. Okay, no issues. Yeah, so please see the exact dates. Just see the exact dates. When the shares are issued. Yeah, I'll just fill my glass of water in 1 minute. Just fill my glass of water till that you just see the dates.
Harshavardhan sir. Hello. I think there is some disconnection between the.
No, sir, just wait for the 5 minutes.
Okay.
Sir,
Okay.
drinking the water.
Yes, sorry. So
You
yes,
can take
1st
over.
January. Yeah. 1st January, number of shares issued were already 1800 shares were there. 31st May, the number of shares issued were 600. So 1st November, number of shares bought back are 300. So what is the number of shares outstanding? 2100 at the end of the period. So end of the period, there is 2100 shares, but we don't take as at the end of the period. We will see how many months the actual shares are outstanding. So let us take 1800 shares are outstanding for 5 months. So 1800 into 5 by 12 plus 2400 shares are outstanding for 5 months. So 2400 into 5 by 12, and then we have, after redeeming back 300 shares, we have 2100 shares outstanding for 2 months. So if we take the weighted average, it comes as 2100 shares. The weighted average number of shares can also be computed as, okay, actually this 2100 and this weighted average 2100 is just a coincidence. So it may not always be that this 2100 actually may not be equal to the weighted average. It's just a coincidence. So the weighted average number of shares can alternatively be computed as 1800 into 12 by 12, correct? 1800 shares are there for 12 months. Then 600 shares are there for 7 months, right? So June, July, August, September, October, November, December. But 300 shares are redeemed back. So they are not there for last 2 months. The last 300 shares are not there for last 2 months. But as we have taken full 12 months, here 7 months, we have to deduct that number of shares which are not there as at end of the period. So that is equal to 2100 shares. Okay. So 2100 shares is the weighted average. My dear friends, it is not this 2100. It is a weighted average, which is coincidentally coming as 2100. Okay. Is it clear? Yes. So we use the formula N1 R1 plus N2 R2 plus N3 R3. So here it will be number of shares into months. So N1 M1 plus N2 M2 plus N3 M3 upon the total number of months. So that is a formula for weighted average. N1 R1 plus N2 R2 plus N3 R3 upon N1 plus N2 plus N3. Yes. Okay. So let's go ahead. Let's go back. Yes. Now, very important, how to include the number of shares in the calculation of weighted average. So shares are included in the weighted average number of shares from the date of consideration becoming receivable. That is an example. Equity shares issued in exchange for cash is includable. when the cash is receivable. So of course, when there is a right to receive cash, we'll include that shares. Equity shares issued as a result of conversion of date instrument to the date of conversion. So I told you convertible debentures should be included as on the date of conversion. Equity shares issued in exchange for settlement of a liability are included as on the date the settlement becomes effective. So if you're issuing shares liability, then as on the date when the settlement becomes effective as per the respective agreement. Thereafter, equity shares issued as a consideration for acquisition of an asset other than cash are included as on the date when acquisition is recognized in the books. So when you recognize the acquisition of that asset in the books, you take the number of equity shares from that point. Equity shares issued for rendering of services to enterprise are included as services are rendered. So based on how you get the services. Yes. So this is the way in which we include the shares. Then friends, very important point happens is that equity shares issued in case of amalgamation in nature of purchase and amalgamation in nature of merger. So in case of amalgamation in nature of purchase, equity shares, in case of purchase, most of the shareholders as per the respective accounting standard. So amalgamation in nature of purchase is where we record the books at where we record the assets and liabilities at its fair value. So equity shares issued as a consideration in amalgamation in nature of purchase is included in weighted number of shares as on the date of acquisition, because the transferee incorporates the result of operation of transfer into P&L as on the date of acquisition. So in case of amalgamation in nature of purchase, we take the number of shares to be included in the denominator for weighted average calculation based on the date of acquisition of the undertaking. But in case of amalgamation in nature of merger, there is a small change. Equity shares issued as a consideration in amalgamation in nature of merger are included in the weighted average number of shares from the beginning of the reporting period. So right from the first day of the reporting period, because the financial statement of the combined enterprise for the reporting period are prepared as if the combined entity had existed from the beginning of the reporting period. So friends, therefore, the number of equity shares used for calculation of basic EPS is the aggregate of weighted average number of shares of the combined enterprises adjusted to equivalent shares of the enterprise whose shares are outstanding after amalgamation. So in case of amalgamation in nature of merger, very important point is that we incorporate the number of shares as if they had been there, existed from the beginning of the reporting period. Yes, why? What is the logic behind this? What is the logic behind this? The logic is that in case of amalgamation in nature of merger, friends, majority of the shareholders remain same. So when majority of the shareholders in case of merger remain same of the earlier company and the acquired company. So acquiring company as well as the acquired company, the majority shareholders of the acquired company remain same in case of amalgamation in nature of merger. When amalgamation in nature of merger takes place, when more than 90% of shareholders agree to the merger. So as most of the shareholders remain same, in fact, majority of the shareholders, nearly all the shareholders remain same. That's the logic that we incorporate the number of shares as if it is from the beginning of the reporting period. But in case of amalgamation in nature of purchase, it may not be the case that the number of shareholders remain. So that's the reason why the amalgamation. So when there is an amalgamation, you have to check whether it is purchase or whether it is merger. If it is purchase, take take the number of shares increased as from the date of acquisition, but in case of merger, you can take it from the beginning of the period because more than 90% of shareholders are common, so that will not make much of difference. Partly paid share. Yes, somebody asked me in the chat box. Partly paid shares are treated as a fraction of equity share to the extent that they are entitled to participate in dividends relative to fully paid equity share during the reporting period. So friends, if you remember, there is a concept of equivalent production. So those who remember or those who are into costing or who are actively pursuing the costing syllabus, costing part, then there is a concept of equivalent production. What is the concept of equivalent production? 100 units, 50% complete, are cost wise equal to 50 units, 100% complete. Okay, or I will take not 50% because 50% generally becomes a little bit problem in understanding. 100 units, 60% complete, are cost wise 60 units, 100% complete. My dear friends, same logic we use here. Rupees 100 share, 60% paid up, is rupees 60 share, 100% paid up. So if there is a share of 100 rupees or if there is a share of 10 rupees, which is 60% paid up, then we will take it as equivalent to rupees 6 share, 100% paid up. So let's see one example for this. Yeah, so please go through the example. Hope you can see the screen very clearly. Yeah. Okay. So number of shares issued at the beginning of the year 1800, nominal shares 10, amount paid up 10. So these shares are 100% paid up. 31st October, you are issuing 600 shares, rupees 10 face value, but 5 rupees paid up. So R&D is 50% paid up. So 600 shares, 50% paid up is 300 shares fully paid up. So in that case, my weighted average number of shares will be 1800 into 12 months because they are fully paid up. You can do 1800 into 12 by 12 plus 300. Why 300? Same are 300 shares, 100% paid up. So in that case, very important point is that in case of partly paid shares, 600 shares, 50% paid up is equivalent to 300 shares, 100% paid up. So whenever there are partly paid shares, you always take the help of equivalent concept. So if they are 60% paid up, then 600 shares, 60% paid up will be 360 shares, 100% paid up. And then using the concept of equivalent, you calculate the weighted average number of shares. Okay, I think somebody had asked me the query in the chat box. Yes. Yes, what is the effect of partly paid shares on equity? What is the effect of partly paid shares on EPS? I think that query has been solved. Yeah, let's go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next provision. Where an enterprise has equity shares of different nominal values, but with same dividend rights, the number of equity share is calculated by converting all such shares into equivalent number of shares of same nominal value. So again, the concept of equivalent is applicable in AS20. So again, if there are 1,000 shares of 10 each, and if there are 1,000 shares of 1 each, yes, then you apply the concept of equivalent production and take a common base. So taking a common base is very important. Generally, it is not so, but still, in some case, if it is so, then you have to take a common base, taking the concept of equivalent number of shares. Equity shares which are issuable upon satisfaction of certain conditions. Sometimes conditions are based on contractual arrangements, which are called contingently issuable shares, are considered outstanding and included in computation of basic EPS from the date when all the conditions under the contract has been satisfied. So sometimes we have a condition that if we are issuing shares on acquiring a particular asset, so a asset is acquired by issuing shares. So whenever an asset is acquired by issuing shares, we have a condition that when the property deed is registered in our name, then only the shares are becoming, means the shares will be actually materializing. So as per the contract, it has been clearly mentioned that unless and until the property is not registered in the name of the company, the shares will not be issuable. So in that case, as per the contractual obligations, the moment the property is registered, then only the shares will be considered as number of shares issued for the purpose of calculating weighted average number. Or thereafter, one more, they are saying contingently issuable shares. What is the meaning of contingently issuable shares? Contingently issuable shares are those shares which are issued if and only if certain conditions are satisfied. So for example, we tell to our employees that we are going to issue you shares of our company, provided our company makes a profit of 100 crores for the last financial year, or average profit of 100 crores for the last 3 financial years. So now, when this contingently issuable shares will actually be issued only if after the end of 3 years, the company has made the profits. So only after the condition is satisfied, only after the condition is satisfied and the target of average profits of 100 crores is reached, then only we will include the number of shares into weighted average number of shares. So contingently issuable shares are those shares which are issued subject to fulfillment of certain conditions. So only after that condition is fulfilled will we take that number of shares in the denominator for calculating the weighted average number of shares. Yes, now the most important provision. The weighted average number of equity shares outstanding during the period and for all the periods presented should be adjusted for all other than conversion of potential equity shares that have changed the number of shares outstanding without the change in resources. So friends, here we are talking of bonus shares. So whenever there is a bonus issue, there is a change in number of shares without change in resources, because bonus shares are issued free of cost. So as the bonus shares are issued free of cost, we don't get any consideration for that. The company doesn't get any resources for that. So as the company is not getting any resources for the number of shares, then we will say that very important point here is whenever we calculate the EPS, we have to change the EPS for all the corresponding periods presented. 1 minute, let us see the appendix. I will tell you the logic. Yes, so let us say there is a bonus issue. Net profit for the year 2020, 18 lakh. Net profit for the year 2021, 60 lakh. Number of shares as on 30 September 2021 is 20 lakhs. Bonus issue on 1st October 2021, 2 shares are issued for every share outstanding. So 40 lakh shares are issued as bonus shares. So what will be the EPS for the year 2021? EPS for the year 2021 will be 60 lakh upon 60 lakh, correct? 60 lakh shares, that is rupee 1. Now, friends, if we actually calculate the EPS, if we actually calculate the EPS, so let us understand. My financial year, so I am preparing the financial statements for the year ended, 31st March 2020. Okay, so 2020 I will present 31st March 9. 1 minute, 31st 12. They are taking the calendar year, no issues. So current year is 31/12/20 and previous year 31. This concept is the most important concept and is used everywhere. Previous year 31/12/90. So let us say my net profits are 18 lakhs. Let us say my net profits are 10 lakh divided by number of shares. First 12/2020, I don't know that there will be bonus issue. So that's why at that time it will be divided by 20 lakh. So what will be the EPS here? So it will be 0.9 and it will be 0.5. 18 lakh divided by 20. Yes, 0.9 and 0.5. Now, when I go to financial statements, for the year ended 31st 12/2021, then I will have current year 21, previous year 20. Now, friends, very important point is that when I present here net profits, so when I present here net profits, this will be 60 lakhs and this will be 18 lakhs. But now my divide by number of shares will not be 20 lakh. It will be 60 lakh here, and here also it will be 60 lakh. In other words, whenever there is an issue of shares without any corresponding resources, you have to change the denominator for all the periods reported. Because if you don't change, if you make it 20 lakhs, so for example, here 1 rupee and here it will be 0.3. Yes, so why this is so? The reason is that even though there is a change in number of shares, the company has achieved the profits of 60 lakh on the same resources which it had in the earlier year. So there is no change in the capital. Very important. There is no change in the capital. So as there is no change in the capital, whenever I am presenting the adjusted previous year figures, I have to adjust the denominator in such a way that I use the denominator after considering the number of shares issued without any consideration. So that is a very important logic here. So why the logic is there? Because if I don't show this, then there will be a complete misstatement. So for example, if I show here same amount, 20 lakhs, what will be my EPS? So if I show here the same amount, my EPS will be 9. Oh, so you can see that if I don't reduce the number of shares, sorry, if I don't increase the number of shares which I have issued as bonus shares, then my EPS, which is 0.9 earlier, and now it is 1. Tell me, is it true that there is only 10% increase? Is it showing a true picture? Is it showing a true picture? Actually, okay. Let us take very simple, same thing. Okay. Let me take the profits, same 20 and 19, previous year, current year. I'll take current year, previous year. Let me take profits of, let us say 58 lakhs, 50 lakhs divided by 20 lakhs, 20 lakhs. Actually, it is not clear because there is a huge difference in the profits. So let's see, 58 divided by 20, that is 2.9 and 2.5. Same next year now. So current year 21, here it was 20 and 19. Now current year 21 and previous year 20. So now let us take 58 lakh, right? And now let us take 60 lakh divided by now 60 lakh, and I would have taken 20 lakh if the standard was not specifying that. So EPS 1 and again 58 divided by 20, 2.9. Now you can see that if I show 2.9 in my financial statements of 31st December 2021, then will not a reader who is not a specialist in finance, what judgment he will have? He will have the judgment that there is a decrease in EPS, means there is a decrease in performance of the company by 1.9 rupees per share, which effectively goes to 190%. So if you don't change this, then there is a major misrepresentation that my EPS has decreased, which simply means that my performance of the company have decreased, which is not so. So actually, now if I take here 60 lakh, now you can see 58 divided by 60, which is 0.96. And yes, there has been increase in performance of the company because profits have gone up from 58 to 60 lakh. My EPS have gone up from 0.96 to 1 rupee. So deliberately I revised the figures because in the illustration, it is not clear the logic that why they have given this provision. And this provision is very important because all the future calculations are based on this provision. So now you can see that if I don't change the number of shares issued for no consideration, if I don't add it up, then there is a misstatement of my EPS. My EPS in that case becomes 2.9, which was correct last year. But if this year you presented 2.9 in comparison to 1 rupee, then my problem is that there will be an impression in the mind of the reader that the performance of the company has drastically decreased, but which is not true. Because actually the performance of the company has increased from 58 lakh to 60 lakh. It has not decreased. But if you don't take the effect of bonus shares in the denominator in the comparative statement figure presentation, then there becomes a impression that the EPS has drastically reduced. Okay, is this clear? Yeah. So this is the logic. I deliberately showed you the calculation that if we don't include it here, then exactly what happens. But you will have reported a different EPS last year. Yeah, you are right. Absolutely right. So you have reported a different EPS last year, but because you have changed the number of shares issued for no consideration, you are absolutely right that my EPS in the comparative column has changed as to what was reported last year. But give me answer of a simple question. Isn't this change required for proper interpretation of the data? Isn't this change required for proper interpretation of data? So there is definitely a change of what was reported last year, but if we don't change, then it will give a wrong impression about the performance of the company. And to prevent that, it is required by AS 20 to change the earnings per share. So you are absolutely right. Your observation is well observed that yes, there is a change in EPS. So what you showed last year and what you are showing this year is going to change. But this was also correct, and this was also correct based on the new shares issued for no consideration. Okay. Yes, please, still here any questions are there? Please let me know. Please let me know.
No, sir. Till now, no other questions in the question bank.
Okay.
Whatever is there is on the chat box. it is- Yes, sir.
Okay. See, the questions are not there in two scenarios. First, if everything is understood, then there is no need to ask questions. And second, if nothing is understood, then also there is no need to ask question. So I hope it is the earlier.
No, it's earlier,
I
definitely.
hope it is
sir, it's
earlier.
going on well.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, let's go ahead. Yeah. Now, whenever there are right shares, again the same concept, there is a bonus element. So as there is a bonus element for right shares, let us see what treatment to give. Bonus, I think everybody has understood the logic, the most important logic, because as I said, this logic is applicable for a lot of next provisions. Yeah. In case of right shares, exercise price is often less than the fair value. Therefore, a right issue usually includes a bonus element. In this case, there is a need to compute a theoretical X right fair value price per share. Theoretical value of a share is fair value of all shares outstanding immediately prior to the right plus amount received from the right. I will tell you logically very shortly, upon original number of shares plus right shares. The number of shares, the number of equity shares to be used in calculating basic EPS for all the periods prior to right share is number of equity shares prior to issue into fair value prior to right upon theoretical X right value per share. Appendix number 4 we are going to refer, and I am going to again explain this logically. So let's see. Here I had changed the data for your understanding, because the data which was given in the appendix is not so clear. The logic doesn't become clear. Okay. Yeah. Net profit 2020 11 lakh, 2021 15 lakh. Number of shares outstanding 5 lakh. So before right, number of shares outstanding 5 lakh. Right issue, one new share for every 5 shares outstanding. So 1 lakh there will be right shares. So friends, after the right, number of shares outstanding will be 6 lakhs. Fair value of one equity share immediately prior to right 21. So 21 is the value of share before right, and 50 rupees is the right price. So 6 rupees, 15 minus 21 minus 15, 6 rupees is the bonus element. 6 rupees is the bonus element which every shareholder will receive free of cost. So computation of theoretical ex-right price, fair value of all shares outstanding prior to right upon number of shares. So there is a formula which we have to find a theoretical ex-right price. Theoretical ex-right price is equal to fair value of all shares immediately prior to right, that is 5 lakh, in plus the total amount received from exercise of the right upon number of shares before plus number of shares after. Friends, it is a very simple weighted average calculation of the price after right issue. So simple calculation, N1 R1 plus N2 R2 updated average price, weighted average price after right issue. So this is nothing but a weighted average price after right issue, N1 R1 plus N2 R2 upon N1 plus N2, where N1 is number of shares outstanding before right, plus into R1, which is the rate before right issue, plus N2 is the right shares issued 1 lakh into the rate applicable for right 15 rupees upon total number of shares, that is 5 lakh plus 1 lakh. So friends, based on the weighted average price, my weighted average price is 20 rupees. So my weighted average price 20 rupees. Earlier it was 21 rupees. So my adjustment factor is equal to fair value per share prior to exercise of right 21 upon theoretical X right price 20. So 21 upon 20 is 1.05. My dear friends, 0.05 is the bonus element. So in 1.05, so this 1.05, this 0.05 is the bonus element without consideration, issued for no consideration. Now, the moment it is a bonus element issued without consideration, I have to increase all the prior periods presented for the number of shares issued without any consideration. The logic I have already presented here. The logic I have already presented here. So the logic, same logic applies down. Only to understand the logic, it is required to see the earlier my example, because below in appendix 4, the margin is so less that we don't understand that logic is applicable. Same earlier logic is applicable here because the margin is very less. But earlier we have seen by changing the figures that how the shares should be presented when there is issue without any consideration. So in this case, as 0.05 is the bonus element. Now see how to find EPS. EPS for 2020 originally reported, originally means current financial year ending 31st March 2020, and EPS of 2020, 11 lakh upon 5 lakh is 2.2. So this is financial statements of 2020 and EPS of 2020 as the current year. Okay, as the current year. Now let us see how to change. Adjusted EPS. EPS for the year 2010 restated means now financial statements of 2021, previous year 2020 for right issue is 11 lakh upon 5 lakh into 1.05, because 0.05 is the bonus element. So this is nothing but financial statements of 2021, current year 2021, previous year 2020, my EPS 2.10 and 2.55 rupees. Are you understanding? So 2.10 will be comparative, and here you can see 15 lakh upon 5 lakh into 1.05 increase for all the periods presented into 2 months prior to right, plus 6 lakh into 10 by 12. So this is pre-right period. Here all the bonus element, and this is the after right issue. After right. So as it is after right, already you have issued the right shares. But as far as the prior right period is concerned, increase for number of shares issued without consideration for all the periods presented prior to the right issue. Is it clear? So again, changes, same query will come in your mind that your EPS was different here and EPS is different here, but absolutely same logic that yes, it will be different, but that is because of number of shares issued for no consideration. You can see here, right issue is made on 1st of March. So January, February is the pre-right period and March to December is the post-right period. Yeah. So this is one more important principle about right shares. So I have given one more example I have given, calculation of adjustment factor, come right price upon X right price. So it's nothing but a weighted average price. So number of shares 5 lakh, come right price was 40. One more example, just because it's a very crucial thing. X right price is 25, right entitlement 1 for every 5 shares. So X right price is rupees 40 into 5 shares plus 20 into 1 share, right share upon 5 plus 1. So again the weighted average price, adjustment factor is 40 upon 37.5. So this 0.67 is again the bonus element. Okay, is it clear? Is it clear? So this 0.067 is the bonus element. And as you can see, for all the prior periods presented, yes, we have to increase with the bonus element. So 0.67 and here also 0.067. 0.067. Yes. Same logic of bonus applicable to right. Yes, I hope it is clear. I've given the logic of bonus element. Yeah. Yes. Next important thing, dilutive earnings per share. Dilution means decrease due to new issue. For the purpose of calculating diluted earnings per share, the net profit or loss for the period attributable to equity shareholders and the weighted average number of shares outstanding during the period should be adjusted for the effects of all dilutive potential equity shares. So diluted shares means convertible debentures, convertible preference shares. Now friends, whenever you calculate the diluted EPS, you assume that all the equity shares which are pending to be issued are issued as of today. So for example, let's see one example. Appendix. Again, appendix is a very nice way to understand this standard. Yes. Convertible debenture. So again, it will be a dilutive potential share. So net profit for the year 1 crore, number of shares 50 lakh. EPS, basic EPS 2 rupees, 1 crore upon 50 lakh 2 rupees. That's the basic. Now, if the debentures are convertible in shares, how much shares are issued for one debenture? Each debenture is convertible into 10 equity shares. So how many number of shares will increase? It will be 50 lakh plus 10 lakh dilutive. If debentures assumed to be converted in shares, worst possibility, assumed to be converted in shares. But if debentures are converted in equity shares, my denominator will change, but my numerator also will change, because the moment I convert my debenture into shares, I will not have to pay any interest. So my interest will be saved. But when I save my interest, my taxable income will increase because I will not get that leverage. So my tax will increase. So my interest will save by 12 lakh, but my tax will increase by 360. So what will be the change in my numerator? 1 crore plus 12 lakh interest saved minus 360 tax paid on interest saved. So that is 1 crore 8 lakh 40,000 divided by 60 lakh. My diluted EPS is 1.81. So 1.81 is my diluted EPS. Now friends, very important point is that this is the point where you have to compare your basic EPS and your diluted EPS, and you have to ensure that your diluted EPS is lesser than the basic. You will see here that the diluted EPS is always lesser than the basic EPS because it is after conversion of debentures into equity shares. So if it is not dilutive, means if it is anti-dilutive, then what to do? We are going to see very short time from now. Yes. So clear dilution. So in dilution, you assume all shares are converted into, all debentures are converted into equity shares today. So dilution means decrease due to new issue. Yes, any question here? You can please. Yes, so diluted, all this we have seen, appendix 5. Yes, now very important point here is that whenever potential equity shares are anti-dilutive, when their conversion to equity shares would increase the EPS from continuing ordinary activities or decrease the loss per share, the effect of anti-dilutive potential shares are ignored for calculating EPS. So this we'll see very shortly, but before that, let us see one small point. Yeah. Please guide us on contingent issuable share. Contingent issuable shares are those shares which are issued by the company based on an agreement only if certain conditions are satisfied by the other party. So for example, if the employees of the company are given an option to allot shares if the company gets a return on investment, return on its share capital of 15%. So unless and until you get a return of 15%, the shares will not be, the employees will not be entitled to that shares. So only when the condition is fulfilled, that is the return on investment of 15% is achieved, then only the shares will be issued. Yes, this is, yes, of course, whatever is going to be the case, it will affect diluted EPS. So just wait. So we are going to see the options and warrants right now. For the purpose of calculating diluted EPS, an enterprise should assume the exercise of dilutive options and other dilutive potential equity shares of the enterprise. The assumed proceeds from these shares should be considered to have been received from the issue of shares at fair value. The difference between the number of shares issuable and the number of shares that would have been issued at fair value should be treated as an issue of shares for no consideration. So in case of warrants or options, there also is a bonus element. So let's see how to see the bonus element. So let us go to appendix number 6. Yes, effect of share options. Net profit is 12 lakh. Number of shares, weighted average number of shares 5 lakh. Average fair value of share is 20 rupees. Weighted average number of share under the options. So employees are given an option or options are issued, where weighted average number of shares under option will be 1 lakh. So 1 lakh shares will be issued under the option, and exercise price of the option is 15 rupees. You know, companies give options to employees, or mainly employees they will give. Yes. So friends, first of all, basic EPS. Basic EPS, absolutely no issues, 12 lakh upon 5 lakh. So 12 lakh upon 5 lakh, this will give us the basic EPS. Now, what are the number of shares under the option? 1 lakh. Now, how much money we are collecting by issue of these shares? 1 lakh shares are issued at a discounted price of 15 rupees. So there is a 5 rupees benefit to the employees, or 5 rupees are without consideration. So 20 minus 15, 5 rupees is actually without consideration. Forget this. How much money the company is getting by issuing options? 15 lakh rupees, that is 1 lakh into 15. Now, if this 15 lakh we are to collect at fair value, if 15 lakh we are to collect at fair value, we would have to issue how many shares? 15 lakh divided by 20 rupees, 75,000 shares. So why 75,000 shares? If 15 lakh rupees had to be collected at fair value, then we would have required to issue only 75,000 shares, but we are issuing 1 lakh shares, means aren't 25,000 shares we are issuing without consideration? Aren't 25,000 shares we are issuing without consideration, and hence when we calculate the diluted EPS, my diluted EPS should take into consideration this potential dilution in the EPS, and that will be 12 lakh divided by 5 lakh 25,000, that is 2.29. So you can see that because of these options which are issued, there is a dilution of 0.11, because 25,000 shares would have been issued without any consideration. So the earnings have not been increased, as total number of shares has been increased only by number of 25,000, deemed for the purpose of computation to have been issued for no consideration. That's what I'm saying, that you would have issued 75,000 shares only if it was for consideration, but actually you are issuing 1 lakh shares. So 25,000 shares you are issuing without any consideration. So whenever there are options outstanding while calculating dilutive EPS, you please consider the effect of this number of shares issued without consideration. So that is the treatment that you have to give when there are options which are outstanding in favor of the either employees or any party to whom the company has committed to issue the options. Yes, so that's a very important point. And one important point before answering all the questions, let me finish the last part, that is the dilutive and the anti-dilutive. Then I will answer all your questions because the time is limited. So please let me finish first the main thing, concept of dilutive, anti-dilutive, and then definitely I'll answer all the questions. Yes, so now we are going to the very most important thing. The effect of anti-dilutive potential equity shares are ignored for calculating the dilutive EPS. In considering whether potential equity shares are dilutive or anti-dilutive, very important, each issue of or series of potential share is considered separately rather than in aggregate. The sequence in which the potential shares are considered affect whether they are dilutive or anti-dilutive. I will explain this. In order to maximize the dilution of basic EPS, each issue or series of potential share is considered in sequence from most dilutive to least dilutive. Where the earnings per incremental share is the least, the potential share is considered most dilutive, and vice versa. Friends, let's go to appendix number 7, and then I will answer all your questions. Yes, I have a scenario before me. Yeah. Net profit 1 crore. Number of equity shares is 20 lakhs. Average fair value of one share 75 rupees. Now options are there. 1 lakh options with exercise price of 60. So you can see 75 and 60. So there is a shares to be issued without consideration. Convertible preference shares, 8 lakh shares are entitled to dividend of 8 rupees. Each preference share convertible into 2 equity shares. So this is potential. So convertible means this becomes a potential share. Convertible debenture. Nominal amount of debentures 10 lakh, face value is 10 lakh. Sorry, 10 crores, and each debenture is convertible. So again, this also is a potential share. So there are 3 effects of dilutions: options, preferences, debentures. Now they say you consider each calculation of dilution separately. Don't consider it together. Let us see how. So first, let us see only for options. So tell me, if options are converted into equity shares, what will be the change in earnings? 0. If options are converted in equity share, there will be no change in earnings of the company. So it will be 0. And what is the effect of the shares issued for no consideration? So 1 lakh options are there and you are collecting 60 rupees. So actually you are collecting 60 lakh. And if this you would have collected at fair value of 75, then you would have collected 80,000. You would have issued 80,000 shares, but under the options you are issuing 1 lakh shares. So aren't 20,000 shares issued for no consideration? And that's why my incremental EPS here is 0 upon 20,000 shares. That is 0, because there is no change in earnings and my shares issued for no consideration is 20,000. So my dilution effect is on 20,000 shares. So my incremental EPS is 0. Next, preference shares. Increase in profit. I think how much dividend we are saving if convertible preferences get converted in equity shares. 8 lakh, na? 8 lakh into 8 rupees. So 64 lakh we are saving dividend, plus let us assume 10% as given in illustration, the corporate dividend tax. So that also will not be required to pay CDT. So 70 lakh 40,000 we are saving, and how much shares we are increasing equity shares? 8 lakh into 2, correct now? Because every preference share is going to be converted into equity share. So this divided by 16 lakh. 4.4. So what is my incremental EPS? 4.4. Similarly, in case of debentures, how much profit I am increasing? I think 10 crore debentures na? Into 12%. So I am saving 1 crore 20 lakh as interest, but this is a tax deductible expense. So if I don't pay it, my tax will increase. So I will increase a tax of 30% on that. So 36 lakhs I will have to pay the tax. So 84 lakhs, 1 crore 20 lakh interest saved, 36 lakh tax paid on that. So 84 lakh is my net interest which is saved because I am converting debentures into shares. So I will not be required to pay any interest, divided by number of debentures converted in shares. So that is 2.1. So now if I see the ranking, you can see this is the least. So this is the least ranking. This is the second ranking, because after 0, my lesser EPS is 2, and then this is the third in rank. So if I give the ranks, then I should consider options, which are the most dilutive. Then I should consider debentures, which are next dilutive, and then I will consider preference shares, which are the least dilutive. So it may be noted that the most dilutive, as their increase earnings per incremental share is nil. Hence, for the purpose of computation of diluted EPS, options will be considered first, then the convertible debentures, and then the convertible preference shares. So now see my calculation. 1 crore divided by 20 lakh. This is the basic. So no problem. Now my earnings are increasing by 0 and my shares are increasing by 20,000. So 4.95 is my dilutive EPS. Is it less than basic? Yes. So that's why they are dilutive. Next, 84 lakh. So 184 is my increase in earnings divided by 60/20. So my dilutive earnings is decreasing. So concept of conservatism. Show the losses and don't show the gains. So again, my earnings are dilutive. So I will show 3.06, no problem. But now go to the last part, which is convertible preference shares. So my earnings are increasing by 70/40, but my number of equity shares are increasing by 16 lakh. If I would convert today preference shares into equity. So 184 plus 70/40, 2,54,40,000 divided by 76, 3.34. My dear friends, if you can see 3.34, this is more than 3.06. So concept of conservatism that show maximum losses and don't show the incomes unless and until they are realized. So conservatism is failing here. So as the concept of conservatism is failing, my dear friends, you will not show dilutive EPS as 3.34. We will show the dilutive EPS as 3.06. So conservatism is failing. Principle of conservatism is failing because you are reporting an income which is not certain. So as you are reporting an income which is not certain, the principle of conservatism doesn't allow us to ignore the concept of conservatism. And hence, in my diluted EPS presentation, I will be showing 3.06 and not 3.34. So my basic EPS will be 5 and my diluted EPS will be 3.06. So since the diluted EPS is increased when taking the convertible preferences into account, 3.06 to 3.34, the convertible preferences are anti-dilutive and are ignored in the calculation of dilutive EPS. So they are ignored. Therefore, diluted earnings per share is 3.06. So this is based on the concept of conservatism or prudence. Now let us see if I go without calculation of ranking. So if I go without calculation of ranking, what will happen? Options I would have taken first, then I would have taken preference shares. So if I would have taken preference shares, what would have happened? At that point only it would have become anti-dilutive. So let us see. 1 crore plus 70,40,000. Okay, let's take this divided by 2020 plus 16. So I think divided by 36,20,000. 4.70. So at this point, it would have become 4.70 if I would have taken the preference shares first, and then if I would have taken the debentures. So from 4.95, I would have gone to 4.7 first, and then let's see. So 1 crore plus 70/40, 84 lakh divided by 2020 plus 16 lakh is 3620, and 3620 plus 40 lakh 7620, right? 3.33. It would have become 3.33 if I would have followed the preference shares first without undertaking the ranking. So which is better in dilution concept, which is more conservative, 3.33 or 4.7? As it's 3.06, which is more dilutive. So if I would have taken preference shares first, then agreed it would have been dilutive, 4.7. But my next convertible debentures would have been 3.33, whereas if I consider is in the sequence of most dilutive to least dilutive, then my dilutive EPS is 3.06. So you can see that conservatism principle is more applicable to 3.06 rather than 2.34. So that's why you can see why we have to give this ranking. So this ranking helps us to show a conservative EPS of 3.06 rather than 3.33. Okay, is this clear? Concept of dilution? Yes. So that's why we have to go from the most dilutive to the least dilutive. Yes, friends, last some time I will keep for the question answer session. Yes, I hope I've covered all the points logically and conceptually.
Sorry, I got disconnected, sir.
No problem, no problem.
I will request all the members if they have any questions to post.
Is the question about contingently issuable shares clear? Contingently issuable shares are those shares which will be issued by company subject to satisfaction of certain conditions, which, for example, the company makes a declaration that they will issue shares to the employees if the company achieves a rate of return of 15% on its investments. So the moment the 15% is achieved, the shares will be included, will be issued, of course, and from that point, it will be included in the number of shares. So 1 minute, very important point. Let us say my target of 15% is achieved on 31st March 2022. The moment my target is achieved on 31st March 22, the company gets an average return of 15%. Now there will be some time required now to people to exercise the option. So let us say 3 months are given to the people to actually exercise the option. But what does AS20 says? AS20 says that whenever there are contingently issuable shares, then see the provisions for contingently issuable shares, when it will be included in the denominator, when the condition is satisfied. So not when the shares are actually issued. Yes, please check here. Equity shares which are issuable upon satisfaction of certain conditions, that is getting a return of 15%. So condition means 15% return on investments. Resulting from contractual arrangements, contingently issuable shares are considered outstanding. So they will be taken in the denominator and included in computation of basic EPS from the date when all conditions under the contract has been satisfied. So the moment the conditions are satisfied, they will be included in calculating the weighted average number of shares. Okay. What is the effect of change in accounting policy on EPS? How it can affect EPS? The change in accounting policy will completely affect the EPS, but we are already making the disclosures as required by the accounting standard 5 for change in accounting policies. So that disclosures will be enough for the purpose of AS20. So no need to make separate disclosures, but definitely a change in accounting policy will affect the earnings per share. But there are sufficient number of disclosures required by other standards for the purpose of when there is a change in accounting policy. So that disclosures will be enough for whenever there is a case of change in accounting policy.
Okay. I request the members to pose the questions, please, if they have anything. So we will wait for a few minutes, sir.
Yeah, sure.
I think you have taken us very deeply into the topic and there might be no questions.
I try to take it as detailed as possible, but sometimes what happens that, I fear that I should not go in too much of detail, but it does happen that, yes, it's always beneficial that as we are, taking some topic, it's always better to, clear it from level 0 to 100. So everybody has at the back of the mind that, okay, if this was the situation, what would have been the thing? So it's always better to cover right from the basic.
No, it was very elaborate and very brief also, sir. Okay.
Yes, 2 hours were there. So in 2 hours, you have to, balance on the rope that exactly all things should get covered. And a lot of concepts are there. So especially, the bonus element, the right issue calculation, and the dilutive and anti-dilutive. So these 3
Correct.
important concepts are there, which are logical actually. So that's why I just thought that we'll take this standard and we'll explain this logically as far as possible to the best of my abilities.
No, sir, it was very great. So, as there are no questions, I now move ahead for the.
Okay, very nice examples. Thank you.
And I think Kashinath is not there, so I will conclude. So, definitely, sir, in the today's scenario of pandemic and volatile market, it has become very important to review the methods, guidelines, and policies and provisions of this AS20 EPS. You have taken us to all policies, guidelines, disclosure standards, and very briefly have explained all the basic EPS calculations as well as diluted EPS calculations with the help of the examples. You have even explained us the various concepts of diluted equity earning per share calculations also. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. And on behalf of all the members joined to this program, I thank you for giving us and enriching us on this topic. And on behalf of Pune branch of WARC of ICAI, I thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Lecture. And hope
Thanks
we
a lot.
see you soon on many other topics coming up in the near future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
And with this, I today close the session for the day and adjourn. Thank you. If anybody have the questions, they can
Yeah,
just
you can give me. Yeah, my number also is there. My number also is there. Yeah, I will share this presentation also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it can be uploaded.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Swati madam, are you there? Is I request the Pune branch officials to be coming online, please.
Yes, sir.
We have closed for the day, madam, and there were no question answer. We have closed.
Okay, sir.
So